Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 18th Annual Tallgrass Film Festival. I'm Delilah Reed. I'm Social Media Assistant for Tallgrass Film Festival, and I just want to welcome all of our guests that are with us today, and thank you so much for being here to listen to the Q&A. Thank you also to our sponsors who we love with all of our hearts and souls. So remember, while you are living your best life, watching all the films and stuff, tell all your friends about it. Hashtag Tallgrass 2020 and at Tallgrass Film. That's how you find us. So spread the word, tell everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let's get started. Hello, everyone. We're gonna pass it over to Ryan and he's gonna do some introductions.
I am Ryan Johnson. I'm also here with Tallgrass, kind of pulling double duty today, and so happy to be here with Delilah and all of these amazing Kansas filmmakers. Let's see here. Who do we got in the house today? We got Emily Railsback, director from Fear Not, is in the house. We've got Tyler Pennick, director, producer, editor of Woo Shock Doc, the history and making of Woo Shock in bronze. We've got Alex Schneider here. He's the director of Be Brave. We've got Nicole Hodges Pursley, the director of the film Epiphany. Let's see. We also have Lindsay Rathert here from Fear Not as well, Hi. The producer. Who else do we got in the house? We've got Brett Jones, the creator of the film Desert. And we've got Patrick Clement, writer and director from Must Love Pie.
Hello, Ryan. It's very nice to be here. Nice to see you again.
It's so nice to see you too.
Very
so happy to have you here.
And then we also have Ryan Johnson, producer of Kill Estate.
Hey, that's me.
Ryan, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for being here. Let's get started.
All right.
So, a great question that kind of warms everybody up to knowing a bit more about yourself. Could you tell us, we'll probably do a pop, or if you're like, hey, I want to go first, just do it. But tell us, how did you get into filmmaking? What inspired you to jump your feet into the filmmaking world? And I think I'll just call on Alex.
Well, thank you. Filmmaking has just been kind of a thing, a part of me pretty much my whole life. I thought I wanted to be an actor, but then I got behind the camera and found that I loved that even more. And I started doing that in about high school, and just kind of it's evolved from there, and just anything I can do to help tell a story and entertain and keep people either on the edge of their seats or crying, laughing, and just the gamut of emotions is what you can do with filmmaking. It's pretty inspiring.
Great reason to get into filmmaking. Emily, how about you?
Well, I come from a very small town in Kansas, where filmmaking was definitely like not even something you would consider back when I was in high school, which is like early 2000s. So I didn't think about it initially, and then I went to college. I got into theater and realized like I actually care more about creating things and directing things, and I actually care more about images than live performances on stage. So very roundabout way, ended up getting into film. I didn't study film in undergrad. I ended up going back to get a master's MFA in film. But I basically studied all the elements of filmmaking, like design and photography and acting and creative writing, and then sort of put it together into film. I sort of felt like there was only so much I could tell with still images, and I wanted to tell projects that were very much about social justice. And so it just seemed like there were bigger stories to tell than what I could just tell from like having a photography exhibit or a painting exhibit and things like that. So that's kind of what brought me to that.
Of course, yes, definitely filmmaking tells a complete story and really makes it impactful impression on people. So that's a beautiful reason to get into it. Tyler.
Hey everyone, good to meet you all. I first off just want to say that I'm honored and humbled to be a part of a group like this. Honestly, I don't get a lot of opportunities to collaborate and speak with other creatives, and anytime I do, I jump on that. I know Alex can definitely speak for me on that. We've done things together before, so I'm definitely happy to be here. And in terms of filmmaking for me, it's probably different than any other creative. It started out with me getting paid, actually. So probably the only person I can
nice.
say that. So my father actually worked at a cabinet company, and his company was building a new door for a cabinet. And in order for his employees to know how to create it, he needed a video. So started off very technical video, wound up getting a paycheck from it. That my dad made up a made up company name for me, so I couldn't cash it. I didn't know much about banking at the time, but it was wonderful to have. And I thought, oh my goodness, you can actually make money from this. And then my next 100 projects, I made absolutely no money. But eventually the money comes, and I'm happy to do what I do now, which is director of videography at Wichita State. So, yeah.
Very cool.
Nicole, how about you?
I love these stories. This is great. Thanks so much. It's exciting to be here. I'm a little bit of a Kansas transplant from Los Angeles. I've been here now for about 12 years, but similar to some of the kind of hybrid ways folks came to directing, I came first as an actor, and really having worked in Hollywood, working on TV and film projects, and as an actor, and realizing that I have very little power as an artist and as someone who wanted to create all the time. I felt that I was really having to wait for permission to do what was really a lifeline for me. And the only escape hatch that I found was really shifting where I could be in control of the projects that I was doing. And so I shifted to theater directing, and I've been a theater director for going on 20 years now. And, the first film I did was on 16. So that tells you I was doing it a while ago. And when filmmaking was very expensive. So that's why I kind of shifted to theater, because I could have a little bit more control over the production values. And now I'm segueing back to, film, where it's, really a free-for-all of, the opportunities to be able to make digital content coming from stage. So I'm an artistic director of KC Melting Pot Theater here in Kansas City, and which is a predominantly African-American theater. And I'm segueing back into moving pictures, if you will, again. And it's been great. It's been great to be back, and with a whole different set of eyes than I did when I started out when I was 20, 22. Yeah, so.
Well, welcome back to filmmaking. Having watched your short, it was remarkable. I was really, really moved by it. I loved it a lot. So thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Lindsay, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, well, a little bit similar to Nicole. I started out as an actor, but I met Emily almost 8 years ago now, when she actually cast me in a film as one of her actors. But that collaboration sort of kicked off getting involved in film in other capacities, whether it was production design, hair and makeup, whatever. And I found I really, really loved it. And then I think, as Nicole was speaking to also, that bigger sense of, while I really loved acting, I think seeing stories where I wanted to really help the story be told and maintain its integrity. As we all know, it's easy for things to kind of take their own course. But I think falling in love with stories and really wanting to help other creatives see those come to life, I ended up loving producing. And so that's been a really fun kind of turn to go down.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Me?
Yes, you.
Okay, sorry, I was seizing on a little. So I don't know. I just think like when I was a kid, I thought I was going to be a professional magician, and then I was a homeless teen, and then I was a chef, and then I was like a real estate agent and stuff. And then I realized that filmmaking, and I wanted to be in the music industry, and I ran a record label, and I was the tour manager. So when I started to make films, which I came in pretty late, I just realized it was the job that encompasses all those jobs. So it was like I don't have to do one thing when you get to be a director or a producer or a writer. Like I get to pretty much do all the things I love without having to just focus on one. Like I remember when I was a kid, like I had read this article about like this person that had like made pens their entire life, and like their parents were in the pen business, and it was just like the one thing that they did incredibly well for their entire life. And I realized I was never going to be that person, that I just have like a wide variety of creative interests. And so filmmaking lets me do that. And it's, to be quite honest, the only thing that really makes me happy. So I
Do
just
you
do that.
find, having talked to so many filmmakers and stuff, one of the biggest things is that you really wear so many hats doing it?
Oh yeah.
For sure. Brett, let's hear from you.
Hey, so yeah, I guess, I don't know, I feel like I got into filmmaking that just like sort of happened or something. I don't know, like it just came to me. Remember getting like a kid camcorder when I was like 5 years old, and I just used to love running around with that thing. So for my whole life, I've just always wanted to learn more about it and get better at it, from like technical stuff or just like developing stories and stuff. So yeah, I don't know. I'm in film school now, so I'm still on that path towards learning everything. So I guess I just kind of got into it on it.
Welcome. Ryan, how did you get into filmmaking?
I watched a lot of movies as a kid, and I wanted to be Jim Carrey, and that always kind of resonated with me as a kid. And then when I got older and I was having like friends over for sleepovers and stuff, you know, my dad would take us to the video store and we'd rent horror movies, and he'd let us kind of pick out whatever we want. And so that kind of fostered a love for horror. And so, you know, fast forward many years later, I had kind of acted and stuff a little bit, but I went out to be an extra in Rod's zombie movie here in town, The Dead Can't Dance. And I met Wade Hampton there, and we just kind of hit it off. And it's been 10 years now with Art Brute Film, and we just kind of make stuff when we can get everyone together and when we want to. And it's been awesome. I love it.
Since you mentioned that, so what's kind of fun is Tyler's, one of the subjects of his film is the director for Kill Estate that Ryan is in production with. Just a really neat connection.
I've been noticing a lot of those connections throughout, which is really great when you start to see all the people working together and working on different projects together and everything. It's really fun to kind of trace those webs through the community.
So many overlappers with filmmakers, and just really incredible to see that web. So, I told Ryan earlier that I always, like, about to ask a question, my mind goes blank. Professional Q&A, guys. We have so many different films from so many different styles, so many different stories being told, and so many of them are so impactful. Could you all tell me a little bit of what the inspiration for your films was?
Yeah, so Emily and Lindsay, I mean, where did Fear Not come from? Like, what was the impetus of that?
Yeah, so we actually both live in Chicago now, and I really wanted to make something in Kansas. I love Kansas so much. That's where I'm from. My mom is still there. And so I was really, I mean, ever since 2016 election, I've been really interested in telling rural stories of Americans that don't get portrayed in the news. I think I personally, and I think Lindsay would probably agree here, is that like we see a huge difference of like the urban rural divide, and the way that rural people are often portrayed in the media doesn't show the nuances of like what small town life is actually like. So this story, which is about gun violence, like a Mennonite woman, which I come from a small Mennonite town of like 3,000 people. So like pacifism is a huge thing in this town, and people don't believe in having guns and, you know, don't want to arm themselves. And then within the same town, there are people that are like super pro-gun. And so I thought that would be an interesting story to tell, because I don't think a lot of people even know that, you know, those viewpoints are in the same small town. So it started as that. And then I thought, like, what better way to show that except like other than like within a family. So like the husband has one view, the wife has a different view, and the husband is actually a politician who votes he's like a senator who votes to arm teachers with guns in classrooms. So the wife, who is a pacifist kindergarten teacher, has to sort of choose between what ideal she thinks is more important to her, like marriage or her pacifism. So yeah, it's kind of based on my hometown and the people I knew, and I cast a lot of non-actors. We flew in a few people, but the majority of people were Kansans, and I, you know, cast like the local police chief to be the police chief and things like that. So it was a really fun experience.
That's awesome. Lindsay, when did you come into the project? Did you develop this together, or?
Well, Emma had been working on the idea for a while. She and I are both interested in filmmaking as a form of activism, so I definitely jumped at the chance. Also, our lead actor is fantastic, and she and Emily had already been throwing some ideas around for a while, so I was really excited to kind of jump on at that point. You know, as Emily spoke to, being in Chicago, it's an interesting perspective on both gun violence and the attitudes towards people kind of outside of our immediate bubble, and that ambiguity that Emily was speaking to was super interesting to me, and that's where I kind of got really intrigued. It's also, we made a few films in our hometown now at this point, and it was such a positive experience and so amazing. Kind of coming from Chicago and Los Angeles, going to an area where people are so welcoming and supportive and on board. And like Em said, you know, you talk to the local police chief and he was like, oh, no, I'll be in your film. That was just such a cool experience. So I was incredibly excited to go make another film in Kansas. And then also, yeah, kind of exploring those nuances and hoping to sort of bring those voices more to the forefront, I think, and explore those perspectives.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
So Nicole, where did Epiphany come from? How did you get started with that?
Well, I think it's a similar pathway of we've all talked about storytelling. You know, what stories are important to you, and in this particular racial climate, some of the stories that have been really important to me have been about, you know, what are we telling our children about this moment? And I had just directed a play, a constant collaborator of mine, Louis Morrow. He's a writer from Kansas City, Kansas, and we work closely together. He's the director of new playwriting in my theater company, and I had directed a play of his called Midnight Black that had a very strong female character in it. And it's kind of a dystopic play that is about a group of African Americans deciding to resegregate themselves because of anti-Black violence. And there's a line in the play that says, you know, before we can figure out what we're going to do in our community, we really need to figure out, you know, what are we going to do about our little Black girls who are constantly vilified and criminalized in the media. And so I said, what if we built, you know, a short film around, you know, a story around a little girl? And Anaya Morrow, who's the star of our film, was also in the play. And I said, you know, I'd love to direct her again. She's just a great actress and just happens to be the daughter of the writer. So we just went back and forth and collaborated on this idea. I said, I'd love to dispel some stereotypes. You know, can we see a Black family that, you know, just live a normal suburban life? Dad's got a job, mom's got a job, kids at school. Can we, you know, see a loving relationship between a Black husband and wife that shows just the mundane, everyday engagement of a Black family? And with a little girl who's got everything in the world going for her, but yet is still depicted in a way that's highly problematic, or seeing the way, if you've seen the film, the way that a white woman kind of, profiles them, or, the way that they're looked. So that was really with a direct desire to say, how can we tell a great and very short story about this moment and what happens next for the future for young kids that are still dealing with these perpetuations of Black stereotypes in this moment. So that's that. And Christy Dobson, who was supposed to be here, is our producer. And I took it to her and said, can we do this film? And she called me back and said, yeah, what about next weekend? It literally happened. I sent her the script, and 2 weeks later, she galvanized a whole team of amazing folks who donated their time because they believed in the story to make this film happen. So it was a kismet moment.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I think it was really well done. And I'm sorry, what was her name? Anaya?
Anaya Morrow is the actor.
She's so fantastic. Yeah.
It was amazing.
Yeah, she's a really lovely. There's more to come from her. She's a fantastic little actress. Kansas City, Kansas.
Oh, cool. Gotta love it. So Alex, what made you want to tell Carmen's story and be brave?
She, like, my wife actually used to live with Carmen. That's how I met Carmen. And she's just a wonderful, fantastic individual, and super, super healthy, health conscious. And when my wife and I heard the news that, she was diagnosed with thyroid cancer, it kind of just struck me that, it just kind of blew my mind. I know people can get cancer, but it's like, knowing someone like her who's just so health conscious and just, she bikes and she's just in great shape, and she gets cancer, and it's kind of unfair, so I just kind of contacted her and I said, would you want to do a video on it? I feel like your story needs to be heard. And she finally agreed. She was a little nervous. She actually mentions it in the video. She was kind of nervous to do it. She kind of felt like her story didn't deserve to be told. And I thought, that's not right. No, your story definitely needs to be heard. So, she's just a wonderful person, and thankfully she's still cancer free after the surgery. But and I'm just really really proud of her and everything she's done, and I'm really thankful that she allowed me to help tell her story. So I just felt, I definitely felt it was something that needed to be told. So
yeah, it's a heartbreaking, kind of beautiful story in the end, and I thought it was really well handled. So great job.
Thank you.
I know Carmen as well, and she is a little ray of sunshine when you see her out and about. She
really is. She's really like the most positive person ever, and and again, that's just just her personality when you're around her, and it just rubs off on you, and she's a wonderful person. So
she is. It was really great hearing her story, because I hadn't heard that, kind of knowing somebody but not actually knowing this battle that they've been through and stuff. So it was really great to have that chance to look at it.
It was just kind of and when she talked about she went to therapy too, I was I wasn't expecting that. Because when we sat down and we started doing the video, or at least did her interview portion, I just knew that she had thyroid cancer, and she had the surgery, and she was in remission. So I didn't know, I wrote out these questions and just wanted to know more about the story. So when she was talking about how she went to therapy, that, kind of blew my mind, but I loved that she told it, because, that's what therapy's for. It's there for people that go through traumatic experiences or what have you, and that they just need to talk to someone. So I thought that was really, really powerful. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I thought it was, she had mentioned just talking about the hard stuff, and I do think it's important to talk about anxiety and depression and therapy and kind of destigmatize all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So Tyler, you're clearly a big Wichita State guy. What led you to the project of the Wooshock doc?
Yeah, so we're definitely taking a turn on this conversation. I watched the last few people that spoke. I watched all of your shorts, and they're definitely very impactful emotionally. Obviously, the Wooshock doc doesn't really probably stand in the same arena, but sort of the idea there, besides me actually working for the university and wanting to tell stories that happen on campus. If you think about, we'll just use Kansas for an example, but KU, Kansas University, and Kansas State University, they both have very well-known mascots in the Wildcat and the Jayhawk. And whenever we found out that Wade was going to be drawing the mascot for a 125-year year-old university that didn't have an actual mascot in 3D created yet, it just seemed like a story that needed to be told. When you think about all these other universities, they not only do they have a story told about their mascots, but they have statues on campus. I don't know the exact number, but I know that just this last year, the year before, KU had, I think, 8 statues of their Jayhawk added to campus. So it's something that is normal for other universities. And, as a videographer for Wichita State, I always am interested in putting Wichita State on the map and showing that we belong on a D1 level, and we deserve to be compared to other universities. And this was just an opportunity to do that. When I found out who was involved on the project via Wade Hampton and Connie Internet, just very well-known creatives in Wichita, I was like, yes, I have to tell this story. And there's a huge fan base. Obviously, Wichita State has a really large fan base through athletics, and luckily the mascot can play a role in athletics. But there's a lot of people that are interested in the story of the mascot. Just from those years, like I said, of tradition and history that have been created at the university, people just have drawn close to this inanimate figure that is literally a shock of wheat. It's the strangest mascot in the world. And that's been proven actually in a few articles. It's actually been #1, the weirdest mascot. It holds that title. So to tell the story about it was fun, and I think that it could be a piece that we can show students hopefully for years to come, and they can have a better understanding of what they're representing when they go compete or when they graduate and they have it hanging in their office or whatever. So it was fun. I'm glad we did it.
Wade had mentioned the statue. He wanted so badly to be involved in it because that statue will outlive him and all of the rest of us and everything, and it'll be around forever. And that's kind of one of the things that I really love about film is forever. And it's once you make that thing and you have your baby and you put it out into the world, then it can live that life forever and ever and ever. And so I thought that was kind of a cool kind of through line there that I kind of picked up, is just that statue's not going anywhere, neither is that film. So it will be cool to have around for future generations even.
Absolutely. And if you know Wade, he likes bunnies. And so he actually made a small bunny that's on the back of the statue. So if you ever have a chance to go look at it, shout out Wade on his bunny on the back.
Yeah, Connie, I was in the studio a lot while she was working on it. So I got to pop in and see it actually being created a lot. And for me, like knowing that she had assigned different artists to create little creatures to go inside the wheat for the statue was really neat. And helping actually create one of them that went on it was really a neat experience, and get to see it in the film was for me like, I love this.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I think I did hear that. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Patrick, where did Must Love Pie come from? Is it just was it born from the cake v pie debate?
Sort of. I mean, first, I'm in awe of filmmakers like this group who can take sort of contemporary issues and ideas and like make them into stories that are watchable and relatable. I don't think I'm very good at that for some reason. I'm a little more in the escapist camp, where I think like we're all different type of creatives. I just happen to like to sort of shut my brain off a little bit and watch stuff. And I don't think one is better than the other. They're just different. I'm actually very jealous. I went to a school, my grad school is specifically for those types of stories. So I wish I was better at that. But no, I made the film for a lot of different people. And I hope that the audience, you know, we wanted to make a fun rural Kansas story about love and dessert and sort of a dry humor, tragedy, comedy tragedy about love and cake and whatever. I made a film for me that was about, that was a parable for the creative life. So I think, again, I hope the audience has a laugh, and Danny is great in it. And again, we also cast a bunch of non-actors, and I think the film is very watchable. But for me, I wanted to write a story about, as a creative, I live like in a cave, basically. And I think I look at the outside world through a window and I think there really isn't a place for me out there, right? And then one day I get brave and I walk out the door and I'm like, oh, this isn't too bad. Like maybe there is a place for me here. And I go about my business and then very quickly realize that I was right and there's no place for me here. And I rush back into my cave because I'm terrified. But that ultimately I always walk out the door. So I'm always going back out to try again. And so that was really the impetus of the film. And then I built this quirky little story about death and pie. And originally it was written for a pair of senior citizens. And so, but that seemed like unfortunately, that didn't seem like it was very practical for a lot of reasons. And then I was able to cast Danny and Megan and the rest. But I also like rural Kansas stories, and my last 3 films have been rural Kansas stories, short films that I made in Kansas. Also, you know, it's for practical considerations. It's you know, you have to come in under a budget, and what a great place to make films, because not a lot of people make films here. And you get a lot of mileage out of a small town. I think, was it Emily that was like, I lived in a small town that was only 3,000 people? Was that you, Emily? Yeah. So the town that we lived in is like 300 people. So 3,000 is like the big city. That's like where we go buy groceries, basically. But anyway, yeah. So that's where Must Love Pie came from.
Yeah, my wife likes to remind me that that she lived in such a small town because I was like, my graduating class was like 500 people, you know, and she was like, that was like the whole town. Yeah. But yeah, very cool. I love everyone wanting to tell these Kansas stories and just spread the Kansas all around. Brett, what made you want to head out into the desert?
I think. Yeah, so I was born and raised in Derby, Kansas, so just south of Wichita. My whole life, lived there the whole time. So when I went to school in Arizona, it's a very big difference. So I think I wanted just a chance to kind of run around and explore that. And so I kind of used the film as a way to do that, just taking in all the geography and just kind of like the vibe of like the culture there and like how the desert makes you feel when you're walking through it, I think was something I really wanted to explore, having never experienced that sort of thing before. And also just used it as a way to like mess around with some cool visual things. I really am into like cinematography and editing, so I just love to do crazy things with that. So tried to do that.
It was wild. It gets pretty wild. I love it. Yeah, it's trippy stuff. So very cool. Good job, man.
I've definitely been on a hike in the desert before, and it was a lot longer than I had anticipated. And at some point, I was like, I'm gonna die out here. And, and that feeling, but it can get very eerie very fast.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That was the vibe for sure.
Let's see here. What you want to just do a lightning round here, Delilah? Do you got any burning questions for anyone?
Burning questions.
We can just bounce around.
Ryan, I'd love to hear from you. How on earth did Kill State begin?
It's not that exciting. We wanted to Wade, my dear friend, best friend and collaborator, Wade Hampton, and I, we just wanted to, he had the idea for Kill Estate. We had a friend who was moving out of their house in College Hill, and so we had basically an empty house. And so we cast my lovely wife in the lead role of Red Ruby, and we got some amazing other casts, like Maria is a friend of ours. And so, we really just work with the same people, and we wanted to see if you could basically shoot a film in like an afternoon with like one of those big China balls, just like on a stick, like take lighting out of the equation, take setups out of the equation, and really just see like what we could accomplish with just bare bones crew and everything. And it was a lot of fun. It was like the only production we've ever had where you go, wait, we're done? But it's not 8, like we finished on time. We finished early. That might be a bad sign, but yeah, no, I mean, it was just something fun that we wanted to throw together, and I got to work with my wife, which I always love working with her and the rest of the gang. So, and I got to make a spooky mask.
Your wife is the most lovely, gorgeous, talented human in the world. I hope she's watching.
She will be. Yes. I'll let her know for sure. Thank you.
All right, little lightning round. Tyler, how long did it take for you to, since you're obviously following Connie on the journey, how long did that take from beginning to end of filming?
Yeah, I'll give you a little more than that. I do a lot of wedding videos. My wife and I have done probably 60 wedding videos, maybe north of that. So I'm so used to finishing a production in Ryan's time. In day of shoot, you show up, you shoot through the day, you go home, and you crack open a cold one. And that was not the case with this one. This was so much different than anything I've ever done. It took around 2 years to collect everything, to throw this together. So, I can't think of time that this will happen again. I sure hope it does. But for such a large project, there's a lot of collaboration involved. There was a lot of money involved, not on my end, but on the creation side. And for it all just to come together over that long of a span was really cool.
Marathon.
Yeah, it was insane to see. Like, you think about statues and you just never really think about every single step of the process that goes into making a statue, especially something that size. So, I mean, my mind was blown. It was so cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I had no idea what I was getting into. That is the truth.
Yeah. Brett, so what were the biggest issues that you ran into in the desert? I mean, how long were you out there? How worn out was that poor actor having to run around all day in the cacti?
Yeah, he's getting pretty tired. It was fairly hot. We were out there, I can't quite remember. We were like moving fast because we knew like we're going to pass out if we don't get this done. So we were probably out there for probably like 4 or 5 hours, I guess. But the biggest obstacle was there's these cactus that will explode on impact, so that more of them like spread. So anytime we would be walking around, we would brush up against one, it would fall and it would like explode everywhere. I can't remember the name of the cactus, but that was a lot to deal with. You have to like pull them out of your shoe and everything. It's crazy. But
that's remarkable. I am so excited about that.
You had no idea about exploding cacti?
I had no idea.
You're like you're the plant lady.
I know, I didn't know.
Start doing your research. You got one, Delilah?
No, Ryan, you take this one.
Okay. Emily and Lindsay, so fear not. Obviously, you said you want to make films for social justice, and really kind of, you definitely didn't shy away from anything. I mean, you've got politicians being swayed, and religion, and loss of faith, and gun violence in schools. How do you approach all of those subjects, and are you shy at all, or are you just willing to kind of put it all out there and kind of let the audience kind of decide how they feel about it?
Yeah, so I actually wrote a feature-length script, and our hope was to get funding to like shoot the whole feature, and that didn't happen. And we ended up getting a grant for a short film. So we're like, okay, let's just take scenes out of the feature and make a short from it, and we can use this then to like pitch the feature. So I think one of the, I think if you watch it, there's just a lot of things that for a short film are maybe too complicated. Our main character was raised in a Holdeman Mennonite family, which is like much more conservative. And she's actually like more of a liberal Mennonite now. And like that stuff you can't get into. So unless you're really from that culture, like there's a lot of things that are going to be over your head. So I was trying to be as real as possible to the culture and the people. And so the actor who's playing Jared, the husband, is actually a politician. He actually ran for governor in Kansas. I don't know if you guys know him, Josh Spotty. And so he was actually friends from high school with our main actress, Kristen Bush. And Kristen was she was an actress in Berlin, but she's from Kansas. And so she and I had been talking, like, we want to do a piece in Kansas about women that are strong. But yeah, I think in talking about politics, we used him as a resource a lot. And I wrote mini drafts, and he was like, nah, that does not happen. And so that was like really helpful to have him, because in my mind of like, when shady deals are done between senators, it happens in a way that's like clearly not what really happens. So he helped me in revising some of the dialogue to make it more natural. And then also, we used some Kansas filmmakers, and then we brought in Chicago filmmakers with us. And I think it's interesting to be like, we all like living in Chicago, it's a very blue city, and the way that we feel about guns is very different than rural Kansas, because, and this was something that I really wanted to convey in the film. For us, like the street that I lived on was a fairly okay, safe street, but the street over had like gang houses on it. And there's just so much gun violence in Chicago. So in Chicago, many people are like, yeah, we don't need the Second Amendment. Like, we don't need guns. And I know that would, very much upset a lot of people that are friends with us, in Kansas. So my goal the entire time was, I want to create a story that is just a conversation piece between people of different sides, and to really like let the characters have their own viewpoints. So Laura Kirk, who is a professor at KU, she was also a producer on this film, and she was an actress. She like played the gun trainer. And so she, I think, was really helpful in like, her mindset of like the dialogue of her character and whatnot, the kind of research she put into that, of like wanting to be like, from her, what her character says is basically like, I'm just trying to save a child's life by like teaching these teachers how to use guns in their classroom. And like, from her perspective, like that's really a mindset. And so I did come to Kansas a few times to research, and I spent time in coffee shops overhearing, like, I honestly was just on a laptop typing up the dialogue I heard of old people, and it was great. And a lot of it was like, I would hear them talk about guns and Hillary Clinton and things that were just like, oh my gosh, this is so ripe for dialogue. And so, yeah, the whole idea was, I want to make a piece that, isn't going to offend anyone or make their viewpoint not seem relevant, but that really like is a piece that comes together around this one character's faith. And so if she is a pacifist and she, believes this, like what would it actually be like in her small town for her? So yeah. And Lindsay, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, yeah, I was going to say, it was, I think, a really good litmus test when we're interacting with the people that actually live in that community, to sort of like tread the line of I think it was just a good way for us to kind of do a gut check and say, are we bringing our personal views into this or not? Because while Emily and I are in a lot of alignment on our personal views around gun control and gun violence, keeping in mind that like the whole point of the story is to try to present a more neutral view and sort of let the viewer decide as they're going through the experience with the character. So I think when we're talking to people that we are well aware have very different viewpoints than us, making sure that the story we're telling is staying true to that, I think was really interesting. And then on the flip side, you know, it's easy to be in our creative bubble here in Chicago, where most of our friends, I would say, probably have similar views to us on the subject, and to kind of challenge some of that. You know, as Emily was saying earlier, let's expand our stereotypes around like what people in rural areas think. And that's been, I think, super interesting to me. So it's less about, you know, we're just going to go for it and worry about being like, are we offending people or are we being politically correct? And more just trying to stay true to the thing that originally drew us to tell the story, which is, you know, there's a lot of gray area. So.
Yeah.
Also, like, we had help from the police department there. And I actually called them before we came down there just to tell them about the film and see if any of them would act in it. And they, like, it was so interesting just like treading water on this phone call of like, in my mind, I didn't know if they all thought that teachers should be armed with guns, you know? So it's like, they were sort of like treading water back with me and were like, oh, so are you trying to make this film to show that like teachers should be armed? And I was like, no. And finally, like, it finally came out that like, I'm a pacifist. I'm not trying to make this film about like, let's all, you know, have guns. And so, yeah.
But it was nice that you did have, you know, the other side, like you said, like Laura just saying like, look, I'm just trying to help people. Like, I'm just doing what I can to save lives. And, you know, and it did kind of show the other side as far as, you know, not taking too hard of a stance or feeling like preachy or anything, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
the last thing we wanted to do was make a propaganda piece.
Right.
And so I think it was really helpful to sort of adopt that stance of like, that's not how I feel because of the community in which I live, but I can understand why, you know, you have your viewpoint. So it was helpful to kind of keep that frame of reference in mind.
It's nice to actually be able to have a dialogue like that. Like, I may not agree with
It
you, but
is.
we can both have thoughts and opinions on things, right? Like, we're all
Totally.
just humans.
And the fact that Emily, you know, started working on this project years ago, I mean, frankly, like the closer and closer we get to the election, the more and more prescient it starts to feel and more relevant, which is a nice change for film. So.
Yeah. Nicole, so you mentioned 16 millimeter versus digital. I mean, do you miss shooting on film? Do you, I mean, you want to go back to film, or you like digital? No.
It's really, you know, it's an access barrier. And I think the barriers that we see in film right now with women DPs, women directors, producers, I mean, it's real. And so when you're shooting, and that was just a barrier that made it even more difficult. You know, I did that first documentary and another short film with Tara Mettinger, who started the Portland Women's Film Festival. And that was, I think my first film festival was like 2000, you know, and there were hardly any women. And then I had just, you know, escaped through theater stages where I found a lot of freedom as a director. But now coming back, I mean, I think we have to amplify the voices of women and women producers. Laura Kirk is a colleague of mine. I'm a professor at KU as well, and we used to be in the same department. And actually, it was Lawrence, Women of Lawrence Film, that helped to produce my film. So I am really about, you know, amplifying the voices of women and girls and allies who are, you know, connected to the work that we want to talk about. So I would not want to go back because it's a financial barrier. And I think, and it's also the next wave for us is having access to unions. So we can work as independent artists right now and make non-union films or, you know, SAG extremely low budget. But, you know, the impasse that stands for us to be, you know, part of DGA, which changes the game for our access to the next level, is something I think we don't talk enough about when we're in festivals and when we're doing this, because we have to organize together for the access And that means not just women, female producers, but also, you know, men and non-binary folk to say, like, what is this about? Like, why is it that only certain people get to make movies? And that's something that we should all be asking, like, who's not at the table? And it's great that we are here, but who's not here?
Yeah, we got to amplify all of the voices, I think.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's definitely.
But I mean, I specifically said women for a reason. You know what I mean? Because it's like,
yeah.
look at like any of our major awards events. Like, where are women? Like, we are here. We are making stuff all the time. So, you know, yeah, so no, I don't want to go back to 16. I want to keep making projects and helping support other projects, you know, that are social justice minded and that change the narrative.
Yeah. I was really pumped. We did we do a short film race competition with Tallgrass called Take 36. And I want to say it was almost over half of the teams, maybe more, had a female director or producer on it. And it was, you know, one of the first years we'd really seen, you know, such high numbers for all the ladies out there making films for our film race. And so it was really cool. So yeah, keep telling those stories and keep pushing it for sure. I'm all for it. Patrick, you mentioned casting non-actors. I mean, how did you find Daniel and Megan are both so fantastic. I'm a fan of them, just, you know, the stuff that I see around. I mean, how did you find them? How did you find the Amazing Diner? I mean, how did this come together?
Well, I don't like to direct actors. It's not a thing I like to do on set. So I spent a lot of time on casting to try to get the right people in the job. I mean, my job is to hire the right people and then let them do their job. So I feel like the same thing with actors. Like I said before, I had wanted to cast people in their 80s or 90s in those roles, which I think would have been a very fun movie to watch, because I don't think we see a lot of seniors at that age in leading roles in films either. Practically it didn't work. So, and Danny will tell you, this is the total truth. I typed in funny guy, Wichita, Kansas. That's it. I typed it into Google. And like a video came up of Danny winning funniest man in Wichita like 10 years ago or something. And he told this really funny joke, because he's Native American, about his parents like circling their cars or something. Anyway, it was a very like funny, dry joke. And then I had reached out to Danny and we met and we had pho, and we were less than 6 feet apart. So that'll tell you the time frame of that casting. We had pho, and I told them that he was basically the anchor of the film, and that if he didn't work in that role, then the whole film falls apart basically. And that also, as a non-actor, all the non-actors on set were going to be looking at him on how am I supposed to act and how am I supposed to behave. It was a big responsibility, and he did a really fantastic job. I think not only was he good in the film, but he was really good on set at sort of being sort of the leader and the example to all the other non-actors. I mean, not a single person. I mean, our waitress, who was in a film that I did a couple of years ago, is the only person that technically had acting experience. I mean, I know that Megan and Danny do some acting stuff around town, like they've done some film races and stuff, but for the most part, no one's really done any serious acting. And then I actually had found Megan through Danny, and I said, Danny, we need somebody that's going to be able to be in that part across the desk, and he sent me a short list. And you know, the biggest problem with casting, because I also cared about Gwen, the female character, is that people's perception about what the film was going to be about. I mean, I think it was hard. It was a tough pitch, because on paper, this is a film about two fat people arguing about dessert. And in the time that we live, it didn't seem, and that wasn't the film at all. It wasn't intended to be that film, but we had actually talked with some female actresses that were like, I'm really concerned that this message isn't right, that there was something going on. Like the themes of the film weren't really connecting with a lot of actors. But But I think Danny and Megan, we all sat down and we said, this is a film about two human beings, and that's all it is. And it's not meant to be exploitative in any way. And I think Megan saw it and Danny saw it, and then, you know, everybody else fell into place. I think casting is a little bit of a strength of mine, and I think everybody in the film is very watchable. And if they're watchable, then I'm happy. It's a really nice ensemble, and there's only, I think, 4 actors in the whole film, so that's a plus. Yeah.
Very cool. No, I think that he was just perfect. Both of them were. I mean, in those roles.
Yeah, they did such a nice job. Yeah, they did such a great job.
The first time that I had watched it, I hadn't recognized Megan. She just.
Oh, really?
Right?
Not at all. No, I was, when I rewatched it before the Q&A, I said, oh my gosh, how did I not recognize?
Yeah. Because like in real life, she's always like wearing leather jackets, and she's like so cool looking, and
cool. She's vivacious. She's sexy, and in this, she's just more of just like a regular girl. That it really perfectly done.
Yeah, she did a nice. They both did and again, I can't stress enough that it's not just about what we make; it's how we make it. And I take a lot of care in the type of personalities that we have on set. And they were both everybody on the film was just spectacular.
I agree. So Alex, and I can't remember if we already covered this or not. We've been talking to so many people here today. Everything kind of goes down with Carmen. So did you approached her about the project, obviously. Did you just want to tell her story? And then when you had mentioned that you knew her from before. I mean, did this bring you closer? Did you just learn a lot more about her in the process? And have you guys become better friends since?
Yeah. Yes to all that. No, yeah. I asked her if she wanted to tell her story, and if she would want me to help tell her story. And really, it actually did bring us a lot closer together as friends, and just hearing what she went through and all that. I mean, and what's crazy is there's so much more to the story that just didn't make it into the film. But
that's what I was kind of curious about as well, was kind of, it's
so tough. Like I wanted to keep it all in there, but it's like, as filmmakers and storytellers, to try and keep it concise and flow, really. So, but like the Little Lion Cafe is in there, and she had mentioned she wanted to be a barista. She had always seen baristas and thought, she want to do that. So she did that. Like, she came back to Wichita and she took up that job, and now she's I believe she's like manager of Little Lion Cafe. So I mean, it's crazy to think about. But I wanted her to be a part of the whole process, like all the way through. I wanted her to feel as comfortable as possible. And actually the very last thing we did, and this was like pretty much like right towards or during COVID and all that. So I had her come over to my house, and obviously like social distance and 6 feet away, but I had this iPad, and I wanted her to write at the very end. It says "Be brave," and I wanted her to write that because she has kind of this kind of like like an online blog or because like I don't know what it's called really, but when she got the diagnosis and all that, she kind of, I'm assuming her therapist told her to just kind of write it, put it out there, and so she started this whole thing, and her name was like "Be Brave, Carm." So I just thought that was like really, really cool. And so I wanted it to be her handwriting in the video. So that the very end title you see that's Carmen's handwriting animating on screen. So she was just brilliant to be a part of, or to be a part of this, and brilliant to be around, and so joyful. So Yeah, I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know what else to say.
No, I think that summed it up. I mean, I think it's really beautiful to just be able to kind of help her tell that story, and I'm sure through the process, even though it was hard, that it hopefully, I'm sure, really helped. You know.
Yeah, yeah, and then now, and like kind of like what we were talking about earlier, is that film kind of like lives on. So she has this piece that she can share with anyone, and it lives on. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Let's see. I don't want to keep you guys all day. We should probably wrap this up. Delilah, did you have anything you want to run around?
Maybe last questions.
Sure.
So Tallgrass is known for our motto, stubbornly independent. And I love asking, it's the thing we love to ask the most, is what does being stubbornly independent as a filmmaker mean to you? So big question, but a really good one that we love hearing. So can I start with Brett?
Yeah. Stubbornly independent means to me just to keep on going. Yeah, I guess that's, yeah, don't give up. Just keep on rolling no matter what comes your way.
Thank you. Nicole, can we hear from you?
And did you say stubbornly? Yes.
Stubbornly independent.
Oh, well, that works well for me because I'm a Taurus. So,
Me too.
yeah, I mean, I guess I always say, don't let anyone or anything get in your way. Just keep on going because someone's always going to say no. So I think we have to be the ones to say yes to ourselves and our own ideas. So, just trust in yourself and say yes and go.
Can I hear from Emily and Lindsay after that?
Yeah, I guess for me, I would say make the film you want to make, even if the budget doesn't come through the way you want to, which I think is like the bottom line of indie filmmaking. So, there's still a film out there that you can make, and you maybe have to like revise some things, but you can still do it. And storytelling is like, it's important to give a voice to, voiceless people, whatever that may mean, even if it's like rural Kansas. So.
Totally. And I think keeping in mind the integrity of the film and, as Nicole was saying, like people are going to tell you no. Something that I love about working with Emily is that when she hears no, what she hears is try another way in. And that's something that I really appreciate about our collaboration is that, whether it's a budget constraint, whether it's a location falling through at the last second, no doesn't mean no. No means find another entrance.
Thank you. Patrick, I feel since you are a Tallgrass alumni, you've probably answered this question a few times, 3 times alumni. But I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, I think all along the way, from the first time we have an idea until it goes out into the world and we hear reviews and we get acceptances or rejections, the key is there's a lot of people at the table and a lot of people are going to have things to say. And I think we should listen to all of them. But that the more we can get internal compass, the better we are as creative professionals. How was that?
That's great.
It was good. I
That's a new one.
Oh, I was gonna say you
Yours
just had it
fine.
memorized by now.
Alex, what does stubbornly independent mean to you?
Don't give a shit what people say. Just do it. Just do it. Just go out and do it. So create.
Well put.
Tyler?
I'd say that a lot of my films tend to be more documentary style. And for me, stubbornly independent is to ask and to not be shy. And I'd say that played a large role in getting the piece that was a part of Tallgrass. Is there was a lot of people that have never been recorded before. I mean, they were, they worked at an NIR, or they worked at a bronzing, company, owning a bronzing company in Texas. Like, they're not used to cameras being in their face. But if you ask and make them feel comfortable and show them your vision, I mean, it can all come together. But if you don't and you just stand back and shoot with your 85 millimeter across the room. Like you're just not getting inside and getting the inside scoop and getting to know your people. So just not being shy and not being scared to ask questions, and that'll really take your story somewhere. And like that's stubbornly independent to me.
I love that. And just giving it the go and saying, hey, will you do this? Really gets you very far in life. So really good advice for everyone. My darling friend, Ryan, let's hear from you. What does stubbornly independent mean?
I should probably have a really good answer for this. We are the epitome of stubbornly independent, I think, only because we have such a small group at Art Brut Film that we love to work with, and it's all of our family and friends, and we rarely bring in all newcomers and stuff. So I think it just means it kind of goes back to what Alex said. We have a thing, it's just create or die. I mean, it's just keep making stuff. It doesn't matter what anyone else thinks about it, as long as you're having fun doing it and you're just making art. Like, just keep going.
Thanks, Ryan. That was a good answer.
Oh, thanks.
There are wrong answers and no there's So I have one last question before we go, and it's the classic one. What's next for you? What projects are you working on, or what's coming out that you also have been working on? So, Tyler, I'll call on you.
Oh man. So, I mean, I'm going to expose myself here at the end, but to be in this, like I said before, I definitely am totally honored, totally humbled. To be totally transparent, I sometimes reluctantly or regrettably don't call myself a filmmaker. I am a video producer sometimes, and I after talking to all of you and slowly working myself into the community, I definitely feel a part of it. But what's next for me is more commercial projects. We at the university have just released a new campaign for this year, and we are trying to entice students to come to Wichita State. So I work in a lot of storytelling. There's filmmaking involved, which I understand that now. And, we tell a story that hopefully entices people to come to the university. So that's what I'm working on now. That's what I'll continue to work on.
Thank you. And keep putting out beautiful things. I've been a part of a few things that you've filmed, and those for me are like memories and keepsakes of hard work and effort and good times. So keep it up. We all appreciate it so much.
Thank you. That's great.
Brett, how about you? What you up to?
I don't know. Things are looking pretty good now. I work for the University of Arizona Athletic Department, and they're finally letting the interns back. So excited to get back out there and shoot and edit some sports stuff. Just looking forward to having fun with my friends, making film school projects and films and stuff. So that's what's next for me.
Wonderful. Nicole, do you have anything lined up?
Well, we're hoping that Epiphany will turn into a short form series. So we're kind of shaping that right now. And my next project is another short film that's dealing with a couple that just dropped their daughter off at college. And so it's what happens after she's gone. So that's in pre-production right now, and I hope to be able to shoot it in the next couple months, depending on our COVID conditions. So COVID pending, that's my next project. Yeah.
That's everybody, right? COVID pending. So thank you so much. We'll look forward to seeing that out there. Emily and Lindsay.
Yeah, so actually during COVID, I started a documentary project about giving birth and women that are giving birth during COVID. So I gave birth 10 days after lockdown. And so I filmed the experience leading up to it and afterwards. And then I teamed up with a filmmaker who's in Rome, and we've basically gotten like women to record themselves around the world, their experience of birth during this time. So We have a lot of footage, and it's obviously going to take a very long time to edit this. So I'm sure I'll do other projects that will come out before this, but yeah, that's what's on the docket.
Wonderful to hear.
Love it.
I'm sure our director of marketing, Gray Rodriguez, would love to speak with you about that sometime. She just had a baby, and it's been an experience for her, I'm sure.
Yeah, totally.
Just had a baby 6 months ago.
My wife just had a baby 6 months ago. I filmed some of it. If you want it, you said you didn't have enough, so.
We actually need more birth footage. So if you have birth footage that she is like willing to be like, you should message me. I'm gonna put my email address in the chat. Send me a message.
Sounds good.
Congratulations to all the new parents. It's exciting.
Lindsay, what's your next project?
I think the benefit of having more downtime than usual lately has been the chance to kind of go back and do a lot more of like the reading and development phase of that. Separately from film, I'm also a birth doula. And so it's been kind of fun to see Emily's project that she's been working on in terms of the COVID doc. And I'm actually also working on creating my own content around birth doula and helping people advocate for themselves and kind of educational stuff around that. So a little bit of a departure from narrative, which is primarily what I have worked on in the past, but it's exciting.
Wonderful. Patrick, are you gonna create something for me to escape to?
Yeah, I am. I'm sorry, and it's so obnoxious because I'm a workaholic, so it's a long list. I'll try to burn through it pretty fast, though. So I have a feature that's been out in competitions, getting some awards that we just signed a shopping agreement. I have 2 other features that are in development. I have my MT Liggett documentary that is still, I'm working through. And then Danny and I are developing possibly a feature, maybe to shoot in Wichita next summer. It'll be very different than Must Love Pie. And then also, we had wanted to move to Los Angeles last spring. So now we're just waiting for everything to chill out so we can move back to LA.
Busy boy, busy boy. I'm excited to see what you have going on. Alex, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have that long of a list as Patrick, but no, I mean, I guess actually during COVID, like the lockdown and everything, I kind of started this like little like series, I guess, where a character is just sitting at a desk and it's called The Box, and he just kind of discovers, or not really discovers, but there's a box in his closet that just starts lighting up. And then I made a sequel to that because people were really enjoying that and wanted to see it. So my next thing is probably trying to make a third one. And I have no outline, no timeline or anything. I'm just kind of going at it and off the cuff, and that's kind of exciting. So that's probably what I'm going to do next, and then find the next doc story I can film and all that. So just creating, just create, shoot to create. That's what you got to do.
I feel like that was an intentional pun, and I really liked it. Ryan, how about you? What do you have in the works?
Nothing like concrete at the moment. Wade's always writing scripts, and I'm always getting excited about them. And then we try to schedule when we can actually make them. One of these days we'll make a feature. He's got a lot of great ideas that he's kind of fleshing out for that. I'm waiting for, I got to be in a Western film earlier this year with Nick Barton called Death Alley. So I got to play a member of the Dalton gang. And so I'm just excited for that to maybe one day come out. And Wade and I started a podcast where we just talk about horror movies because COVID kept us from being able to see each other. And so we decided we would talk at almost 3 hours in an episode about horror movies. So it's called Black Ooze Presents. That's kind of what I am doing creatively these days, is kind of messing around with podcasts.
Fantastic. I am very enthusiastic about your podcast.
Thank you. I don't know who enjoys it or wants to listen to us talk about a horror movie for 3 hours, but it's fun. I like it. So that's all that matters.
Me, it's not quite as scary listening about it, so I can actually get through them. Too much of a baby. Well, guys, I want to thank you so much for being here with us today and telling us a bit more about your incredible films that you've made. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful Tallgrass 2020, virtual Tallgrass. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
You guys are amazing. Thank you.